I used to think loneliness was something that happened to other people, the kind who didn't plan right, didn't save enough friendships for later. I'm Robert, I'm 88 years old, and I spent most of my life believing I'd never be one of those invisible old men sitting alone in diners at 2 in the afternoon. My wife Margaret died 4 years ago this June. We were married 61 years. People say that like it's supposed to comfort you, like the length of time somehow cushions the fall. It doesn't. If anything, it makes the silence louder because your whole life was built around another person's rhythms. The sound of her putting dishes away, the way she'd hum while reading, the particular sigh she made when she was annoyed but didn't want to start an argument. For the first year after she passed, I kept busy. Everyone tells you to keep busy. I reorganized the garage 3 times. I volunteered at the library on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I went to the senior center for lunch even though the food tasted like wet cardboard, and everyone there seemed just as lost as I was. We'd sit together in groups, all of us performing the ritual of not being lonely, and then we'd go home to empty houses, and the performance would end. The thing about loneliness when you're old is that it's different from when you're young. When you're young and lonely, there's this assumption that it's temporary. You'll meet someone, make friends, fall in love, build a life. There's forward motion built into the loneliness itself. But when you're my age, when most of your friends are gone or too sick to leave their houses, when your children live 2 states away with their own complicated lives, when your body won't let you do half the things that used to fill your days, the loneliness feels permanent. It feels like this is just what the rest of life is now. I have a son, David, and a daughter, Jennifer. Good kids. They call every week, visit on holidays and birthdays. Jennifer worries about me. She's always suggesting I move closer to her family in Phoenix or look into those retirement communities with activities and meal plans. She means well. But there's something about those suggestions that makes me feel like I'm supposed to gracefully disappear into some managed version of existence where loneliness gets rebranded as independent senior living. About 2 years after Margaret died, I stopped answering the phone for a while. Not all the time, just sometimes. I'd see David's name on the screen and I'd think about picking up, and I just couldn't because I knew the conversation. "How are you doing, Dad?" "I'm fine." "Have you been eating okay?" "Yes." "How's the weather there?" "It's fine." And underneath all of it, this unspoken thing we were both avoiding, which is that I was desperately lonely, and there was nothing he could do about it, and we both knew it. One morning I woke up and realized I hadn't spoken out loud to another person in 5 days. My own voice sounded strange to me, rusty. I'd been talking to Margaret the way you do, just comments about things I was watching on television or thoughts about the neighbor's new fence. But that's not the same as conversation. That's just the echo of what conversation used to be. That's when I understood something that scared me. I was disappearing. Not dying, but disappearing. Becoming one of those people you don't really see anymore. The old man in the grocery store moving slowly down the aisle. The guy at the post office who takes too long at the counter. We become background characters in other people's lives, and eventually we start to feel like background characters in our own. I had a friend once, Charlie, from my years working at the phone company. We used to play chess every Sunday afternoon. Charlie's wife died about 6 months before Margaret. After Margaret passed, I thought Charlie and I would grow closer, 2 widowers who understood. But it didn't work that way. We'd sit across from each other, moving pieces around the board, and the silence between us was so heavy with everything we couldn't say that eventually we both just stopped showing up. Last I heard, Charlie moved in with his daughter in Ohio. The worst part of loneliness isn't being alone. I can be alone. I spent plenty of time alone in my life and enjoyed it. The worst part is feeling like you don't matter anymore. Like the shape you used to take up in the world has closed over and nobody notices the space you left behind. Your opinions don't carry weight. because you're out of touch. Your stories get interrupted because people have heard them before. Your needs feel like burdens because everyone else is so busy with the urgent business of their own lives. I went through a phase where I'd go to the hardware store just to talk to people. I'd ask the young guys working there questions I already knew the answers to, just to hear another human voice directed at me. One kid, couldn't have been more than 23, was so patient with me. He'd explain the difference between types of sandpaper like it was the most important conversation he'd have all day. I bought a lot of things I didn't need during that time. Then something happened that I wasn't expecting. I was at the grocery store, the one over on Maple, and I saw this woman probably about my age struggling to reach something on the top shelf. I helped her get it down, and we started talking. Her name was Doris. Turned out she lived just 4 blocks from me. Her husband had died 7 years ago. She had the same look in her eyes I'd been seeing in my own mirror, that particular kind of weariness that comes from smiling through loneliness. We started having coffee together once a week at the diner on 3rd Street. Just coffee, just talking. We weren't lonely for romance, either of us. We were lonely for witness, someone to confirm that we still existed, that our thoughts and memories and observations still meant something. Doris would tell me about her grandkids, and I'd actually listen instead of just waiting to talk about mine. I'd tell her about something I saw on the news, and she'd have opinions about it, and we'd disagree sometimes, and it felt like being alive again. That friendship taught me something important about loneliness at this age. You can't fight it by trying to rebuild what you lost. Margaret is gone. The life we had together is gone. Most of my old friends are gone. My body can't do what it used to do. Fighting against those facts just makes the loneliness worse because you're constantly measuring the present against an impossible past. But you can build something different, something smaller maybe, more modest, but real. Doris and I eventually started a little group with a few other people from the neighborhood who were alone. We meet Tuesday afternoons at the community center. There's 6 of us now. We play cards sometimes we just sit and talk. Sometimes we complain about our aches and pains, and sometimes we laugh about things that probably aren't that funny, but feel funny because we're together. I still have lonely days. Days when the silence in this house feels like it has weight. When I miss Margaret so much it's like a physical pain in my chest. When I wonder what the point is of waking up to another day of diminishment and loss. But I've learned that loneliness isn't something you cure. It's something you carry. And it gets lighter when you carry it alongside other people who understand the weight. My daughter still suggests I move to Phoenix. My son still calls every week, and we still have those same surface conversations most of the time. But now when he asks how I'm doing, sometimes I tell him the truth. Not the whole truth, not the depth of it, but something real. And I can hear the relief in his voice when I do, like he's been waiting for permission to stop pretending everything is fine. The other day, Doris told me she'd been thinking about getting a dog, but she was afraid she's too old, that it wouldn't be fair to the dog if something happened to her. I told her that's exactly why she should get the dog, because we don't have time anymore to wait for the perfect circumstances. We just have now, and now deserves to be lived, even if it's messy and uncertain and sad sometimes. If you're watching this and you're young, I need you to understand something. The old people in your life, the ones who seem fine, who say they're fine when you ask, who don't complain much, they're probably lonelier than you realize. And I know you're busy. I know you have jobs and kids and mortgages and problems I can't even imagine. But a phone call that lasts more than 5 minutes, a visit that isn't rushed, asking a question and actually listening to the answer, these things matter more than you know. And if you're watching this and you're old like me, if you're sitting in a quiet house right now feeling like you're the only person in the world who understands this particular kind of ache, I want you to know you're not invisible. You're not a burden. The shape you take up in the world still matters, but you might have to fight for it in ways you didn't used to. You might have to be braver about reaching out, more honest about what you need, more willing to build new kinds of connection instead of mourning the old ones. I'm 88 years old. I've buried a wife, most of my friends, both my parents, 2 siblings, and the version of myself that thought he had everything figured out. And I'm still here. Some days that feels like punishment, and some days it feels like a gift I haven't entirely figured out how to unwrap. But I'm still here, and tomorrow I'll have coffee with Doris, and maybe I'll finally beat her at gin rummy, and that's enough. It has to be enough, because it's what I have, and it's real, and I'm not ready to disappear yet.